Good morning or afternoon, depending on what side of the world you are on. I had this aha today about boundaries and performance and advocating and speaking up, and that when we are in performance mode, we have a tendency to just go with the flow, go with what's happening, not speak up, not say a word, not advocate for ourselves, and do what we're told, because if we push back, we might be seen as a infidel or a obstinate, disobedient person who's not doing what they're supposed to do. So as I get some water, go ahead and grab a pen and paper or a journal, or put on your headphones, go for a walk. Join me today. I'm going to give some tips and tools on how to ask for what you want and advocate for yourself regardless. And so this is also part 2 of the performance ends with boundaries. And it does. Boundaries is also seen as standards, aka standards. I believe that the more that we heal, the more that we let go of past versions of ourselves, the more that we switch up how we see ourselves and how we are also viewing the experiences of what we're actually walking through, changing things up. And I'll talk about that here in just a second. I believe then that we will be able to advocate for ourselves and literally get what we want, regardless of the responses or reactions. Disclaimer: we are not responsible for how people choose to react or respond to us. We are only accountable and responsible for what we say, how we respond, and how we react. One thing that I love about ChatGPT or Perplexity, which is an AI thing, okay, is that you can go in there and say exactly what I'm sharing, and you can ask it to help you create new experiences by advocating for yourself. You can even bring in situations that you're having and ask it to help you come up with a new way of communicating so that you're well understood like the first time, so that it doesn't so that people, another disclaimer, we aren't responsible for how people choose to perceive us or the very things that we're saying, asking for. And we're not responsible for that. We're not responsible for how people choose to view us through their lens. But what we are responsible for is what we do. I believe that when you go into ChatGPT, here's like number one thing, right? I'm going to take a sip of my shake as I'm talking to you. You can give a situation like, there's a situation at my job, and here's what's going on. They're telling me this. I understand this policy is this. What is something that I can do to communicate? Or you can say something like, I want to send an email to my boss, and then you state what you want to share in the email. And then when you say something like, help me to create an email with clear, direct communication that is courteous, professional, and gets a response. And then you just, continue to work with ChatGPT or Perplexity. I like ChatGPT. It's my bestie. And that actually works because now you have some help to get what you're asking. Now, if, however, you are seen as a person and the way that people are responding to you like you are causing trouble, right? poking the sleeping bear, ruffling feathers, those people that aren't really well liked, right? It can feel excruciating. It can feel frustrating. It can feel overwhelming. It can feel like just like, will these asshats, will they please look at a different way of doing things? Could they please, right? I'm being honest. If nobody else says this, well, I know I'm not the only one. Okay. So I just said what other people aren't saying. I tend to do that. And it's not meant to disrespect anyone. It's just what it is, right? When advocating for yourself, there is a cost. There is a cost associated with speaking up for yourself. And I've just shared what that cost is. But there's also a reward. Second tip that I have for you, or the third one, depending on if you're, keeping track. One thing that you can actually do with situations, anything that if you want to take it into ChatGPT, you can ask it to create for you a way to communicate this differently so that it can be well received, so that you're coming across clear, so that it won't be seen as argumentative. There's a way to communicate things and to advocate for what we want without looking like we'll just say gorilla on steroids, right? Without being an entitled brat. First off, when we go to advocate for ourselves, we got to know that we are not entitled. We don't deserve, right? But advocating for ourselves, we deserve worth. We need to know that we are worthy of asking for what we want. This goes in anything, every area of your life. Yet, where I see this not happening is the career world. I see a lot of people suffering because they're not speaking up, or their experience with speaking up has costed them their reputation at their job. It has costed them the respect, say, being treated respectfully from, management. You can tell when you're not being treated respectfully from management. It's right in front of our faces. You can't miss it. It comes with a cost. You can be seen as, because you can see how you can tell by the responses on how you're viewed as when you are bringing up something and you're advocating for yourself and you are requesting something. Now, I will say this, a lot of times what we advocate for, what we ask for, a lot of times you can be as clear as the bluest sky on the most beautiful trip to Hawaii, right? You can be as clear as the saran wrap that's covering the piece of cake. You could be as clear, right, as the window that you just cleaned with delicious smelling Windex. I don't say delicious like I don't drink it, right? But I say you use a great smelling cleaner to clean your windows. Now it's clear. There are some times, though, when you go to advocate for yourself, you're clear as day, and yet your words are still twisted, and your words are still not being perceived or received. Then you have to figure out, is this a me thing? Am I the problem? Because usually there's a common denominator. I am a person that shakes up the status quo. In fact, growing up in foster care, I was taught that shaking up the status quo was defiant, but I was taught that defiance was bad. I was also taught that disobedience was less than holy, horrible. I was also taught that being stubborn was a sin and being rebellious was horrible. Oh, yeah. I suffered abuse at the hands of people who lovingly carried a Bible, went to church, dressed us up. We looked like the Partridge Family. We looked great in front of people. But behind the scenes, I was There was abuse for what happened because I spoke up. I remember certain times in my life where I went to speak up. I was not listened to. I was ignored. My voice was squelched. It was People used to instill fear in me to stay silent. But there was a part of me that I can remember since I was born. I've been vocal. I have a twin sister. We're not identical, but my birth mom told me stories that I would just wake up the whole house when I was an infant. So I'm like, okay, well, that makes sense, right? So the good Lord already planted in me a great voice box. But here's the cool thing. What was seen as horrible is actually a gift that God gave me. And over time, catch this, I have had to learn how to enhance my gift, how to amplify my voice in a way that does not come across defensive, that does not come across with an entitlement attitude. And I've had to learn, and I have learned the hard way. So what I'm telling you today, consider this your tools for your war chest. And if I was on a stage telling you this is exactly what I would say to you. Don't let the things that people told you that's terrible about yourself stop you from evolving. Because what was brought in your direction to stop you and keep you silent and told you that it's bad is actually a gift. Your voice is a gift. Yes. You know that feeling that you get in your gut when you're told something and you know right then and there that something is off? Or you can just tell when something isn't off? Pay attention to that. That's a sign. There's red flags that pop off all the time. Pay attention to that. Those are for actually not only red flags are there for not only your protection, but red flags are also there so you know what to look for. So you know how to stay ahead, not in hypervigilance and not as a vigilante, but you'll know how to stay ahead of the game. It also helps you to know that there are people that honestly aren't even aware that they're giving off the red flags when they go to say something, but yet these same people might be people that are in charge of you, like a leader or a boss or a parent. But I'm talking about career world today. And sometimes if we aren't paying attention, I don't want to use the word sometimes, but if we're not paying attention, we're going to miss these things. But what I'm sharing with you isn't meant to cause you to hide and run and set up some battlefield where you're just going to, start, guns blazing. No, 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 no. This is for you to know how to advocate for yourself. Advocating is a form of boundaries. When we stop when we stop performing and we realize the benefit of boundaries, we're going to enhance our gifting of our voice by learning how to reframe situations, by learning how to look at situations as a lesson, right? And what about me needs to shift, right? It's a learning experience. I had this thought the other day. When we're in our 20s, we know it all, right? Then when we're in our 30s, we know it all, but we're learning lessons, and also we can either see the lessons or we can miss them. Now, here's what I will say. No matter how old you are, the lessons will still come at you, just in different environments and with different faces. But until you catch the lesson, it will be something that you keep repeating for years. Usually in our 40s and 50s is when we start the healing process, and some people start the healing process in their 30s because, let me tell you something, being in my 40s, I have had to learn how to advocate for myself in a manner that I don't have my guns blazing, where I can reframe things and I have tools. If you have been listening to my voice up until this point, and you aren't using the tools like ChatGPT to help you define, refine, reclaim your voice, learn new things, if you're not using tools like perplexity.ai or what is there, Grok or Gemini, whatever, you're missing out. Because I can tell you right now, there's not enough scripture, there's not enough church, not enough conferences, not enough books that you can read, not enough podcasts that you actually get to put this into play. There's just not enough of that. How you get good at it is by practicing and implementing. Here's the flip side, though. Are you ready? The flip side is it can be scary AF, terrifying, because many of us, we have experiences that have literally trashed our nervous system. So even as you're listening to my voice and the thought of doing this, you start sweating, your gut starts firing off and your stomach is turning and it's twisting and you feel like you're going to barf. Pay attention to that. That's an indicator that something in there is needing to be shifted so that you can speak up. Because I'm telling you, setting boundaries actually does help the nervous system. But because of the bad experiences that we've had, what happens is with our nervous system, we're focusing on the experience that happened a month ago, 5 years ago in 1985, right? And we are bringing that into our world now, right now, and we're re-experiencing that over and over again because we haven't learned how to master our nervous system, master the feeling, master the emotion. And I say master because when we start healing, it's a mastery. We become a master in regulating our emotions, in regulating our nervous system, and reminding ourselves we are safe to speak. We are safe to say the thing. We are safe to ask for what we want. Now, different faces, as I mentioned, different lessons, right? They can also be a reminder for how the experience went with somebody else. They can have the same tone. They might look the same. They might even be reenacting the same similar thing that happened, which is causing your nervous system to be in shock because you're like, holy shit, like this is actually happening. But what if, I'm just going to paint a picture. What if for a moment you were able to go into, say, ChatGPT and say, hey, I have an experience where I went to speak up for myself and it didn't go very well with my first boss. This is what's happening now, and this is what I would like to say. You can say something like, help me say and then type in whatever you want to say. Help me to say this respectfully so it gets a response, so I'm heard, and help me to view this in a different way so that I can have a different experience asking or saying this so that I can safely regulate my nervous system, so that I can get what I need and help me to see how this experience can be reframed so it's not the same. Now, if you need to replay this to type that in, I guarantee you it's going to be a game changer because guess what I'm going to do? As soon as I'm done with this podcast, I'm going to get ready to go to the gym. And then I'm going to also do the same thing. Because guess what? Our stories can be rewritten. We don't have to sit in the same hypervigilance, emotional trauma, stuck as we're not under a ball and chain. We're not in a cage. We aren't a slave to our nervous system or emotions. It can be rewritten. And guess what? It's very scary asking for what we want. But I'm telling you, Those who speak up, there is a level of respect that happens. There is a level of respect that happens from people around you because you know what's interesting, and this is in my own experience. I have the track record, I've got the t-shirt, diploma, you name it, I've got it from doing this. I don't do this to show how badass I am to other people. And I don't speak up to prove that I'm great at anything. I do it because, and I share what I'm learning with people around me so that they can see, like, you know what? This chick, she isn't afraid to ask for what she wants, even though she ends up getting, what's it called? Pushback. Or even though she doesn't get the ideal response. But guess what else happens when you speak up and you advocate for yourself and you set the boundary and you stop performing? You find out information that's helpful to you so that you know exactly what to advocate for and ask for and bring up. Here's another disclaimer. We are not here to fix anyone or anything. We are not here to change anyone or anything. We are not here to change environments. We are not here to change how things are done. Trust me, you will burn out in a heartbeat and you will get so frustrated that you'll end up quitting. But guess what happens when you quit? You will repeat the same lesson with different faces in a different environment each and every time. So you can learn the lesson today, here and now, or you can keep repeating it. Now, if you're anyone like me, in the last 6 years, I have been finding the lessons that I missed for many, 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 many years. Okay? The lessons have been coming, but I have found different ways of doing things. I have found how to feel safer. I have learned how to regulate my nervous system. I have learned how to ask for things and bring things up in a manner isn't that gets what I need, gets results, right? Even if it doesn't go in the way I expected, at least I asked, right? So, for example, though, what I also notice is that when I go to advocate for something, if I'm getting the same similar type of responses, I now have the tools to take that circumstance and I can go into ChatGPT and say, hey, I'm noticing a similar pattern when I go to ask for something. Or, for example, same similar pattern that happens to me when I go to set boundaries with people who don't like my boundaries. I've gotten the same experience my whole life. And when I've gone to set boundaries recently with some people, they don't like it. They erupt in an emotional way. They then state how they feel about the boundaries that I've set. And it's like, listen, if that's how you're going to react, because I asked you not to put a video in my inbox that doesn't align with how far I've grown. And if this is you reacting, then I don't want any part of it, right? You've just lost access because that's a form of disrespect. And I noticed a common theme when I would go to set boundaries, I would get highly disrespected and people didn't like it. They would do everything they could to make me feel guilty, to try to, get me to sway my boundary. And I learned the really hard way until, within the last, say, couple years or so. But recently I learned that, hey, when I set a boundary with you, it's inviting you to rise with me. It's not a cutoff and it's not you suck. It's not a personal attack. In fact, I don't personalize things. I just say, hey. And also, when people bring to me their unnecessary behavior, I recognize it in a heartbeat. And it's like, you know what? I shouldn't have to embrace your reaction. And I shouldn't have to try to come back in and explain myself. Because the moment I have to do that, I've already given away my power. And if somebody can't respect your boundaries, it's a huge indicator that it has nothing to do with you, it has everything to do with them. And they really need a timeout. So you let them know, hey, I noticed that this is what was said. I noticed you brought this up. I noticed that your reaction is still the same after a few days. And You can either rise to meet me or you can lose access because what you've done is shown me and I feel highly disrespected. It's not going to be perfect every single time. It's a learning experience. I'm still learning how to set boundaries, okay? But I'm also learning that I'm not responsible for the way people choose to react or respond. That's a them thing. That is literally a them problem. So I've given you some tools today. And yes, you're going to have to replay this, write down, pause, do whatever you need to do to get those tips, to get those things that you need that you can even take into ChatGPT and start today. Don't wait until tomorrow. Whenever you listen to this this podcast, don't wait 5 years from now. Start now. Because the moment you start implementing, that is how you learn. That is how you get good at something. That is how you start seeing the lessons quicker. That is how you start getting results that you never thought you would get. And then you're like, holy shit, look how far I've come. In my vicinity, in my circle, I ignite people. And if you're listening to this, just know that you have now been ignited. And that if you choose to sit, it's going to eat at you because you know deep down that your soul wants you to move forward. And you can't do that if you're just sitting idle, letting what you're learning collect dust. There's only so much knowledge that we can actually consume before we end up being overloaded and we actually turn into lionesses or lions stuck in a cage. And then we start deteriorating inside because we're not putting it to use. Don't let that be you. And today, know that the moment that you start setting boundaries is when performance ends. Because no longer are you performing to be liked. No longer are you performing to look a certain way. And no longer are you performing just to be a good person. Performance actually it keeps us unhappy. Performance keeps us quiet when we're actually supposed to speak up. Sometimes it can leave us, when we are moving out of performance, it can leave us questioning whether or not we're the cause of the problems that's coming back at us from responding the way that we are, right? And it can cause us to take a deeper look. Okay, where can I get better? What can I do differently? But when performance mode keeps us like silent robots, keeps us acclimating and doing things that we're not even supposed to be doing. And performance is never a great place to be. I know because I've been there. I used to perform all the time, and I was the most miserable. But I am going to tell you something else. Boundaries command respect, no matter what they are. And you don't have to tell people, "Hey, this is a boundary." It's not that. It can be as simple as, you know, I have received 5 different emails in the last week, and I'm going to ask that we find a different way to communicate this because I already do this. I've never had to be reminded. Whatever the case may be, a boundary could be as simple as, please do not put that video in my inbox. It can be as simple as, hey, do not just reach out to me when, you're only coming into town, because otherwise I won't be coming to meet you the next time that you decide to text me that. Because if that's the only time I hear from you, then that doesn't feel very great and it feels one-sided. That's a boundary. And then following through. And there are ways to respectfully set boundaries at work. Like if you keep getting micromanaged, I'm pretty sure there's a way to even ask that in ChatGPT, right? So thank you for listening. Thank you so much for being here. Your listening ear is an honor. And I want to say thank you so much for taking time out of your life, out of your day, out of your busy schedule to stop here to my channel when you could have gone to any other podcast, right? And so I love these, what I call casual coffee conversations. When I have this microphone, I can't explain it, but I feel at home. And your being here is an honor. And I want to say thank you. So stay tuned for the next podcast. I promise you will be something fantastic and phenomenal. And let me know what you've started implementing along the way. I invite you to tell me if you can post it somewhere, if you can comment. I'm not really sure how this works yet, but I think you can reply or respond or something. So thank you again. And